It's August 27th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with a mixed day on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed to new record highs on Monday as investors wait on the much-anticipated rate cut next month. But tech shares stumbled as Nvidia struggled ahead of its earnings announcement this week. Canada is slapping a 100% tariff on imports of Chinese electric vehicles, jumping on the bandwagon following similar moves adopted by the US and the EU. Seoul's intel agency says the new missile launchers that North Korea claims to have developed could fire missiles as far as the central part of South Korea. But the regime's capability of actually meeting its own weapons demand remains questionable. It was a mixed start to the week on Wall Street, with the Dow Jones closing at a record high, even as losses for big tech dragged the S&P 500 and Nasdaq down lower. Meanwhile, global oil prices soared as tensions over in the Middle East escalated. Lee Seung-jae reports.
After falling more than 1,000 points in a single day on August 5th, the Dow Jones Industrial Average recovered to reach a fresh record high at the end of Monday's trading session. The Dow Jones rose 65.44 points, or 0.16% from the previous trading session, to close at a new record high of 41,240.52. The index recorded its previous high back on July 17th. The positive momentum on Wall Street comes on the back of expectations of a rate cut by the U.S. Federal Reserve next month, with some economists even predicting a 50 basis point cut. However, the tech-heavy Nasdaq fell nearly 1% on Monday due to profit-taking in semiconductor stocks. The index fell more than 150 points on the day, with Nvidia falling 2.25%. With the AI giant's Q2 earnings being announced next week, investors are selling to profit from gains, following a rebound of nearly 30% from its recent low on August 5th. Meanwhile, global oil prices soared on Monday amid geopolitical risks in the Middle East, including the recent clash between Israel and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. Brent crude futures for October delivery on the Intercontinental Exchange closed above $81 a barrel, up more than 3% from the previous trading session. On the New York Mercantile Exchange, the West Texas Intermediate futures for October delivery closed above $77, up 3.5% from the previous session's close. The surge in global oil prices also come as oil fields in eastern Libya will be closed, with production and exports halted. Authorities cited unspecified protests and pressures for the pause, as the eastern oil fields account for nearly all of the country's oil productions. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And as trade tensions escalate between China and Western countries, Canada is following the US and the EU's lead in throwing a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles later this year. Our Moon Hae-dan has the details.
Canada has announced that it will be applying a tariff on imports of Chinese-made electric vehicles over what it says is an unfair advantage for China in the global market. The announcement came on Monday following a meeting between U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau the day before.
We're listening to automakers, we're listening to workers. Shortly, we will be introducing a 100% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles and a 25% tariff on Chinese steel and aluminum.
These new tariffs match the levies imposed by the Biden administration and come amid mounting trade tensions between China and countries in the Western Hemisphere. Canada's switch-up in automotive policy to protect domestic car production starts on October 1st, and duties will apply to all EVs imported from China. This includes those made by Tesla, and the announcement resulting in shares dropping by 3%. China is Canada's second largest trading partner, and auto shipments from China surged nearly fivefold year-on-year in 2023 as a result of Tesla's EVs. In a similar case with the European Union, the EU lowered its tariff rate for Tesla in comparison to its rates for other Chinese EV imports. Other than Tesla, leading Chinese EV maker BYD has been trying to enter the Canadian market, establishing a Canadian corporate entity and filing a notice saying that it plans to sell passenger cars in Canada as early as next year. BYD currently sells electric buses in Canada and the US and sells EVs and hybrid cars in Mexico and other Latin American countries. Due to concerns that Chinese automakers could bypass trade restrictions by entering the American market through Mexico, the US is considering ways to block this from happening. The new Chinese EV tariff in the United States, which raises the rate from 25% to 100%, is due to go live from the end of August, while the European Union is set to impose additional tariffs starting in November. 문혜련, Arirang News.
At least 7 people are dead and dozens others injured after Russia conducted massive airstrikes across Ukraine on Monday. Kyiv says Russian forces struck 15 locations across Ukraine overnight, using 200 missiles and drones, mainly targeting energy facilities. Ukrainian military authorities say the attacks were the most massive since the war broke out 2.5 years ago. Russia's defense ministry said that they had used high-precision weapons to target key energy infrastructure in Ukraine, which they say supported Kyiv's military-industrial complex. The National Intelligence Service says the new missile launchers North Korea recently said it has developed have the potential to hit the central part of South Korea. But it cast doubt on the regime's ability to actually supply itself with missiles. Our Lee Si-hu has more.
Regarding North Korea's recent claim that it's equipped itself with 250 new tactical ballistic missile launchers, South Korea's intelligence agency believes that the missiles, if launched, could reach as far as Chungcheongdo province, having a possible range of 110 kilometers. But as to whether Pyongyang can actually supply itself with the missiles, South Korea has its doubts. This is according to a National Intelligence Service report made to the National Assembly Intelligence Committee on Monday. The vice chairman of the committee, lawmakers Lee Seung-kwon and Park Sun-won, following their meeting with the NIS, told reporters that there are concerns about the launcher's potential frontline placement in operation and that there is pressure to prepare for defense. But the NIS also believes that the regime's ongoing supply of weapons to Russia could make it difficult to meet its own demand for missiles. North Korean state media reported earlier this month that Pyongyang plans to deploy hundreds of new missile vehicles called transporter erector launchers to its border with South Korea. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
In the meantime, South Korea and the U.S. are staging joint live-fire air drills until Wednesday as part of the Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise. The training is underway in waters off South Korea's western coast. It involves some 60 military planes, including South Korea's F-35A, F-15K, and KF-16 fighters, and the U.S. A-10 attack aircraft. The drill is particularly focused on strengthening response capabilities against enemy provocations that occur simultaneously in the air and on the ground, such as cruise missile and long-range artillery launch attacks. The coronavirus that has been going around this summer is expected to be tamed after hitting its peak this week. But the spread also rings alarm bells over the need to secure locally developed and approved antiviral treatments. We're joined by Dr. Kim Seung-taek for more this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So the resurgence of COVID here in South Korea was initially expected to hit its peak this week, but some analysts note that the spread isn't as bad as we all thought. Is that so?
Well, first of all, we are actually experiencing two surges of COVID-19. Well, this year and then the last year, and then but these surges are actually different from those that we actually experienced during the early COVID-19. And then during that time, no one was actually immune to this new virus, but now everyone is. It's got just immunity, whether it was from infection or just vaccination. Now we are what it means is that now we are just better protected against this virus compared to the previous years.
Well, the reason why the resurgence at this time was so concerning is that we kind of ran out of those antiviral treatments. Now, why is it that we experienced a shortage of antiviral medicine to treat COVID in the first place?
Well, all the antiviral drugs are actually being just imported from just outside. And then I think this is simply just a matter of just the estimation of future events and then some budget planning issues. Other than that, I think maybe we have to think about some expiration of the drugs that we already have just obtained.
Well, Dr. Kim, do remind us, what COVID treatment do we have access at the moment?
Well, according to the some U.S. guideline, the first option is the Paxlovid, and the second is remdesivir, and the third one is molnupiravir, and the lastly is the convalescent plasma. But in Korea, maybe some maybe priorities might be just different from those guidelines from the U.S. But anyway, just Paxlovid is still just the #1 choice for the some COVID-19 patients.
Right, and now that COVID has become more of a seasonal illness that comes and goes around like the flu, which is why there are growing calls for approving a local COVID treatment. What local options do we have on the table for now?
Well, there was some. Well, actually, just we actually developed our own COVID-19 antiviral drug, which was actually monoclonal antibody developed by the Celltrion. And but one of the caveat of this monoclonal antibody is that this is very vulnerable to the variant. I mean, most of the variant has some mutations on the spike gene, which actually just makes the virus evade from the neutralization capacity by the monoclonal antibody. But this one was now no more just recommended for the treatment of COVID-19. But there were some other. It's not really not for just Korea, but other some sort of just a local treatment developed by some specific countries. For example, like some Jocoba, which is actually generic. The generic name is actually Ancitravir. That was actually developed by the Shionogi in Japanese company. But they actually conducted clinical trials with the Ilton Pharmaceutical in Korea, and that was sort of just co-developed by with our own side. And then another drug, this was actually developed by the Chinese company, the Simnotravir. But these are actually Japanese drug, and then Chinese drug are only just available in Japan and in China only.
Well, then how far are we actually from getting official approval for all these, options that you've just mentioned?
Well, since we already have a very potent antiviral drugs that I actually just talked about, well, there is no just immediate plan to just approve of such drugs that I just talked about. It's just simply just a matter of the Korean FDA's just process and approval.
Well, then what do you suggest we do or need to do to prevent more resurgences like this time?
Well, I think just a resurgence is sort of just inevitable, just a process. It's just a process of transitioning from the some pandemic to the some endemic processes. But this virus SARS-CoV-2, which is a causative agent COVID-19, is very interesting, and it is very different from the some other respiratory viruses. For example, like some influenza viruses. The influenza virus is sort of just a winter virus. It's just the virus transmits just better in the cold and the dry weather. But then this COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2, even it actually spreads well in the some tropical areas. So it is quite just different. But then the important thing is that now we have to focus on the people with the some high risk factors. For example, like old age and then underlying just medical condition. As I told earlier, just now almost all is just now got just immunity against this virus. But these vulnerable people, they are very easily just progress to the severe disease even after just a simple infection. So now we have to focus on how to protect these vulnerable people against this COVID-19.
Right, and before getting infected with COVID, there is always precautions and preventive measures. Do you recommend that people in all age groups get vaccinated, every summer or every winter? What do you think?
Well, there's some sort of just a debate for that, but I strongly encourage that if you believe that you are among the some vulnerable people, maybe just a vaccination might just protect you, and also a very timely treatment with antiviral drugs actually substantially decrease the rate of progressing to severe diseases.
Alrighty, Dr. Kim, thank you so much for your time and your insight this morning. You have a lovely day.
Thank you.
On the culture front, an original musical based on Arirang, a traditional Korean folk song, has mesmerized people around the world. Our Choi Soo-hyung tells us more.
The world is being captivated by the Korean musical Ari, the Spirit of Korea. It reinterprets the story of Arirang, a 600-year-old Korean folk song originating from Cheongseon-gun County in Gangwon Province. It tells the story of a carpenter Shin Ki-mok who leaves his hometown and family to sail to the capital city Hanyang to rebuild Gyeongbokgung Palace. Ari Arari was created by Cheongseon-gun County Office as part of cultural events for the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Over the past 7 years, it has gained popularity, being showcased at various festivals worldwide.
We created cultural content using Johnson, Arirang to preserve Cheongseon-gun County's unique identity, while adapting it to modern trends with universal themes like love, family, and home.
The musical was officially invited to one of the most prestigious arts and culture festivals in the United Kingdom, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, from August 1st to 25th, alongside 3,800 other productions. Director Yoon Jung-hwan said that he focused more on music than on language, aiming for everyone to experience the performance through all 5 senses with the Korean essence.
We performed a total of 23 times, and the local response was incredibly enthusiastic. Even though most of the audience were foreigners, they laughed and enjoyed it together. And as they left the venue, many of them were humming the melody of Arirang.
Last year, Ari Arari won the Best Physical Theatre Award at the Adelaide Fringe Festival in Australia. Even a foreign tourist who first saw Ari Arari there later visited Cheongseon-gun and then went to this year's Edinburgh Festival specifically to see the performance again and meet the actors, which moved them to tears. Yoon also expressed hope that Ari Arari would make Koreans living abroad feel even prouder of their heritage.
In the early 1900s, some Koreans were forcibly relocated to Central Asia or left the Korean peninsula. We call this path the Arirang Road. Just like the Silk Road, Koreans have spread worldwide. Back then, it was a path of suffering. But now, through our performance, we dream of turning it into a path of joy.
He hopes that people worldwide will visit Cheongseon at least once to experience Ari Arari. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Walter Lee, and this is The World Now. Starting off in Pakistan, officials confirmed on Monday local time that at least 73 people have been killed in a wave of separatist militant attacks and military counter-operations in Balochistan province. Insurgents targeted police stations, railway lines, and highways. Pakistan's military reported that following one of the attacks, 14 soldiers and police officers, as well as 21 militants, died in fighting on the major highway in the Lasbela district. Balochistan Chief Minister Sarfraz Bukti confirmed that 38 civilians were also killed, including 23 passengers who were shot with their vehicles set ablaze. The Baluch Liberation Army took responsibility for this and the other attacks, including a suicide bombing on a parliamentary base involving 4 attackers, though authorities have yet to confirm all details. The BLA is one of several insurgent groups fighting for independence from Pakistan. It accuses the central government of exploiting the province's resources. The group also calls for the expulsion of China from Balochistan. Moving to France, where right-wing leaders Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella met with President Emmanuel Macron on Monday, as Macron continues meetings to find a new prime minister. Bardella, head of the National Rally, or RN party, told Macron that choosing a prime minister from the left-wing coalition would be a danger to public order and the economy. Le Pen has described the current political situation as chaos, saying that there is no easy solution to the crisis. The challenge for the next Prime Minister of France will be securing parliamentary approval for critical reforms, including the 2025 budget, amid pressure from the European Commission, and bond markets to reduce France's deficit. Iran's Major General Mohammad Bagheri of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has said that revenge for the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh is, quote, certain. Speaking at a ceremony for the armed forces in Tehran on Monday, Bagheri stated that Iran will determine how and when to respond to the assassination on July 31st, which it blames on Israel. Iran's Revolutionary Guards had previously confirmed that Haniyeh was killed in Tehran by a short-range projectile. And finally, a cake wasn't enough for 102-year-old British woman Minette Bailey, who decided to celebrate her birthday by jumping out of a plane. The skydive over Suffolk was undertaken to raise money for charity, and Bailey now becomes the oldest skydiver in Britain. This is not her first daredevil experience, though. When she turned 100, she drove a racing car at 209 kilometers per hour.
Good morning. Murky skies and a refreshing start to the day in the capital despite another tropical night. Right now, scattered rain clouds are dropping light showers to the capital area and Gangwon-do province. Passing rain of 5 to 40 millimeters is in the forecast, while the east coast regions in Jeju Island could see rain through Thursday, so please keep an umbrella handy. Now, heat wave alerts for the east of Gangwon-do have been lifted, with the warning downgraded to an advisory in many parts. So the intense heat has died down, but it continues to be hotter than usual, with heat wave alerts remaining in place across much of Korea. And this afternoon, Seoul and Daejeon will be as hot as yesterday, getting up to 32 degrees. Jeju Island will make it to 31 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Now, the capital area and the west of Gangwon-do should see sunnier skies after lunch. Now, the rest of August looks like being a scorcher under sunnier skies, which could be the weather pattern through early September. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time.